Harry's Wife, Part 102.83.2. Bombshell. Variety interview. She cannot stay quiet. Part 2. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, continuing to educate you about narcissism, using prominent examples, and one in particular that just keeps popping up again and again. Whether it's in videos, whether it's in the mainstream media, whether it's what people are reporting on social media. Harry's wife just keeps putting herself in the sights for discussion and for observation. Not melting away quietly to Monty's shit show, embracing the privacy that she repeatedly bleated about that she wants? Of course not. Narcissism will never allow that to happen. Obscurity would have to be forced upon her. She will not seek it out herself. Unlike certain narcissists that occupy the rarefied atmosphere that don't need to court publicity in the way that she does, having instead extensive fuel matrices that most of the general public don't know about, these are the people that don't need to court publicity in the way that the celebrity lifestyle does. These are the eminent greases, the real puppeteers, the operators. They gather fuel, of course, from extensive fuel networks, but you will not have heard about many of them. Harry's wife is clearly not one of those. Instead, she has to keep popping up to enforce that control, to draw that fuel. And she has done so with another interview. We've set the scene with the somewhat supine reportage from the author of the interview, and now we're going to get into the questions. Many of you will have just endured my analysis of the AOL interview from roughly 6.5 years ago. Many of you noticed the way that Harry's wife spoke and the difference in voice that she has, the more breathy, trying to be sexy tone when she speaks on archetypes compared to the higher voice that's utilized in that interview. My dissection demonstrated many different things, and if you haven't watched the 9-part series, or 8-part series rather, I'd encourage you to do so. But those that you've had will have noticed that she truly is the Duchess of Industrial Beige. She's utterly boring and has nothing of interest to say, totally caught up in herself. But that was 6.5 years ago. Have things perhaps changed? Has she become more polished? Has she got more things of interest to say? There's only one way we're going to find out. Let's embrace the interview and see what her answers are to the various questions that have been posed. The world has been mourning the loss of Queen Elizabeth. How has this time been? There's been such an outpouring of love and support. I'm really grateful that I was able to be with my husband to support him, especially during that time. Notice that there isn't any immediate comment about the magnificent service that the Queen demonstrated to the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. After all, Harry's wife snarkily commented, "Service is universal." She talks about there being an outpouring of love and support, almost dismissively. It's just in a sentence. Yes, there's been an outpouring of love and support in the way that you might say it's raining outside. Why? It's not about her. She's simply not interested. Instead, she immediately has to turn it back to being about her. Rather than say, for instance, the United Kingdom lost a wonderful human being who had given her life to service. That I have recognised that for many people that has left a hole in their lives, and I understand how well regarded and loved she was by tens, if not hundreds of millions of people around the globe. A more evolved narcissist would utilise that opportunity to demonstrate that they appear to be kind, that they appear to be considerate, to manage the facade, to speak in an eloquent fashion. For instance, those of you who listened to what I described with the tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. I did it because it served my purposes, and I was praised by many for doing so. It was about me, but I didn't obviously make it about me. Harry's wife doesn't have that skill. Here, within the second sentence, she's back to talking about herself. Of course, from her perspective, she believes that she's being giving because she's there to support her husband. But what she's actually doing is demonstrating false compassion and drawing the conversation back to what she has been doing, the default setting for Harry's wife. I'm really grateful that I was able to be with my husband to support him, especially during that time. What's so beautiful is to look at the legacy that his grandmother was able to leave on so many fronts. Certainly, in terms of female leadership, she is the most shining example of what that looks like. I feel deep gratitude to have been able to spend time with her and get to know her, again bringing it back to herself. It's been a complicated time, but my husband, ever the optimist, said, now she's reunited with her husband. Now, of course, a more forensic interviewer might say, how do you feel about the comments that you made about her family now that she is gone? Put her under the cosh a little bit. Put some difficult questions, but we know that is not going to happen because either this is a paid-for piece or the PR people have set it up so that she's given an easy ride. Here, we just get more of the talking about herself and how she has been so good supporting her husband and that she has this gratitude to be able to spend time with the Queen. Talks about the legacy but doesn't actually explain what that involves because she doesn't know, because once again it's that fridge magnet level of platitudes that Harry's wife issues. The next question, has anything come up for you in your relationship with the Queen since her passing? I've reflected on that first official engagement that I had with her, how special that felt. I feel fortunate, and I continue to be proud to have had a nice warmth with the matriarch of the family. Now, that might have been an attempt to sort of say, have you examined yourself and your conduct? But of course, Harry's wife isn't going to do that. Instead, she just goes back to the first official engagement, and all she can say about a lady that was on the throne for 70 years is, I've reflected on the first official engagement that I had with her, how special that felt. I feel fortunate, talking about yourself again, and I continue to be proud to have had a nice warmth, i.e., I got on with her, so you better all accept that. How have you processed this loss as a family? In big moments in life, you get a lot of perspective. It makes you wonder what you want to focus your energy on. Right now, we feel energized and excited about all the things we've been building toward. We're also focused on our foundation. So much of the work we do includes the philanthropic space. Okay, so valuable viewers, your husband's father has just died, perhaps unexpectedly, maybe after illness, and he's very upset and you're upset, having known him for some time. How are you processing the loss? Would you respond by saying, this is a big moment in life and it's giving me perspective? It's making me wonder what to focus my energy on, and I feel energized and excited about what I'm building toward. Would you diddly fuck say any of that? Even I, an individual that hasn't a shred of emotional empathy within me, but has learned from my observation of your kind, that the appropriate response would be along the lines of, we're devastated. She formed such a part in our lives and those of other people, it's still difficult to accept that she's gone. Naturally, I only knew her for a brief time, but even then I've been affected by her loss, and Harry, of course, is distraught at the loss of his grandmother. A more involved narcissist would be able to come out with that, even though it's not felt. But with Harry's wife, that shows the lack of emotional empathy, stark, clear, and obvious. It demonstrates how it's all about her. She's just been asked how they're processing the loss of somebody who was on the throne for 70 years, a family member, the grandmother of her husband. And all she can do is talk about perspective energy, energized, excited, focused on our foundation. What the fuck has that got to do with the monarch dying? That just shows how self-obsessed and devoid of emotional empathy she is. You've done 2 major interviews since returning to America. One with Oprah Winfrey and the other with New York Magazine, which some found to be snarky. What has it been like to open up about your life now? Here comes a revision of history. Harry's wife finally cottoned on to the fact that the interview in New York Magazine, the Cut magazine, was actually taking the piss out of her. But because she's not particularly bright and has no sense of humour, she failed to see that. The rumour was, of course, that this led to the relevant journalist having her contract terminated. The fact is now there's an opportunity, as Harry's wife repeatedly does, see the Archetypes series, where she seeks to correct the perceived wrongs against her. She states, "The New York story was intended to support archetypes and focus on our projects. I've had some time to reflect on it, i.e. be advised by it. Part of me is just really trusting, really open, i.e. pity play, feel sorry for me. I just spoke from the heart and some nasty journalist has taken the piss out of me. That's how I move in the world. I have to remember that I don't ever want to become so jaded that that piece of me goes away, i.e. she was a cynical hack who did the dirty on me. So despite any of those things, onward, I can survive it." Assertion of control by essentially dismissing the threat to control posed by it. She's been basically advised to say that, but here was an opportunity through this to nullify that threat to control posed by the rest of the world, going, she took the piss out of you, you dimwit, and you didn't even notice. Part of what I'm doing with Archetypes is looking at the nuances around the women who come on the show. What? By basically saying to one of them, "You're a bimbo." That's nuanced. I'm not a journalist. No, you're fucking not. But I want a candid, real conversation with them, as opposed to what? A pretend conversation. I'm talking to some really textured, colourful, layered, hey, there it goes again, her favourite word, layered, dynamic women with strong histories. And that comes with a lot of pieces you can choose to include or not. I choose to include something that I feel is fair to them, and also uplifting, and something we can all learn from. Oh dear, it's tedious, isn't it? Really boring. She really has so little to say. But we forge on. Join me in the 3rd part to learn more about the anodyne nonsense that she spills forward. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.